Okay, so as you can see on our little checklist and our agenda for this morning, we're going to go through the sort of configuration side of what goes on behind the scenes of the planning board and how we've come to get our calculations and on the plan, so you have an understanding of what makes up the charts that you will be able to see. Okay, so that's what we want to cover this morning. So one of the first things that is quite key and important is the calendars, because the calendars tell us how many hours we're working with a day, and from that times working through the day, we can obviously calculate your capacity, how much you can effectively sew or how much you can print and embroider by here. Okay. So within Evolve, the calendars are nice and easy. I think they're always an easy place to start off with, so that's why I always go there first. To get to the calendars, we go to Setup, General, and then you can see the first line is Calendars. Can you see that as well in yours? Yeah, good. Perfect. So at the moment, we've only currently got set up 2 different calendars, because based on the workshops, that's what we understood. You had 2 working patterns. You have in here you have almost the 24/7 for the machines, because they're constantly running, and then within the normal sewing lines you have I think 7 to 8, 7 to 4
3 shifts here, and we have 2 shifts at night.
Okay.
Yeah, for calendar here we have 4.
So that was the total work.
Sewing one shift.
Sewing, yeah.
Sewing one shift.
Exactly. So sewing, you're only working from 8 in the morning to 4.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what we're going to use for our sewing lines. So if you can see here, we have, so I've selected the calendar there, and once that's done, has brought me up the times of what you're working. So we've said you're working from Saturday all the way through to Thursday. You're doing starting at 8 a.m., working 7 hours a day. Okay? Yeah. Sounds all right?
8 hours.
Is it 8 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Including the break.
So we're not counting the break. Yeah. We're just talking about purely time.
7 hours.
Working hours.
Net working hours.
Yes. Yeah. So you're working 7 hours in total for that day. So then at total hours for the week, it's 42 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, to edit this is to create a new calendar. It's very simple. So I'll show you how to create one yourself. So I'm going to create one test. And then, so you just literally click on that cell there, and you type in whatever the name of the calendar is, and then you hit insert at the bottom. Actually, before you do that even, apologies, because I always get this wrong. You specify your start times, and again, it's quite nice and easy. You just say, we want to start at, say, 6, and then you'd say how many hours you're working, so 8, for example. And then you would repeat that going down and down to produce how many working hours and calendar days you would like to produce. And then it's just simple case of click insert, and boom. You've created yourself a new calendar. Nice, simple, straightforward. Okay? The next tab along here is, again, straightforward. If you ever want to rename or copy a calendar, so if you decide to create one calendar and then rather than recreating it again, you come from here and copy it, or you could just rename it in this tab. The next tab along, quite important, is our holidays. So for things like Eid and other such holidays where you're going to be shutting down or factory shutdown complete, you would come to here, select the calendar, and then along here you'll see the weeks, so you can scroll down to find the selected week. So, for example, Eid, is it this week?
June, no, we have May,
Where are we now? Sorry, it's
June.
First week of June, isn't it?
6th June maybe.
So okay, so it'll be, to put in a holiday, we select that row where we find the calendar week, and then on the right hand side we set the specific day to 0 working hours. So okay, so in this example it's the 6th, was it? 6th, okay. So 6 is the Thursday, so just click on that Thursday, set 0, and then click update, Now you see, it's gone red, which is a break. That signifies we have no working hours there for that day. You could do the same for the entire week if you wanted to. Same again. Update, and just so on and so forth, and continue to block out that entire period of time. You can also, from this window, so it's not just the breaks you can put in, you can also put things like overtime if you've got this period of overtime, or you're doing reduced hours. You can also set the hours. So, for example, we can say if I wanted to set the Tuesday, rather than doing the full day, we're doing half day. I could say we're only doing the 3 hours. I'll go 3. Update again, and then that now is changed to yellow because we're doing short time. Okay. So this whole period this whole piece is quite nice and easy, quite straightforward. And then so any sewing lines that are using this calendar now have half a day on the Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're not working. Okay. So let me just reset these. And then you can see these icons next to the hours. So these are quite useful as well. So the one on the right is to reset to the default working hours. So say if you've added a holiday by mistake and you want to undo it, so you should quite easily click on that button there and it will undo and reset back to the defaulted 7. So there you go, it's putting the 7s back in and I update and it's cleared all that. Okay? And then just the last tabs, these are just to see in the flat format, just for visibility purposes, the working hours you're doing on a weekly basis. So if you wanted to print that out just to see total working hours in your calendars, you could do that. Okay? So did you follow that?
We just started, Sharif. This is the calendar of FastReact.
Welcome. I'll give you a quick overview of what we've basically done. All we've done so far is we've created a calendar, we've associated the working hours to it, and then we've added holidays. So again, so if I just quickly go through it just for your benefit, selecting the calendar in here, you can see we've got our start times and then our working hours for each calendar that we've selected on the left. It's quite simple. And to add hours to this is quite straightforward. You just click on the cell and type in the number of hours you want to do. Okay? And the next tab, next important one, as I'll show in these guys, is the holidays. So for holidays, again, it's very straightforward and simple. To add holidays, you select the line that you want to add a holiday to. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the working hours of that week. And then to set it to non-working day, all you have to do is click on the day you want to set to 0, set it to 0, update, and it's now turned red to signify that we're not working on that specific day. Okay? So, calendars. Nice and easy start to the day, not too heavy. Next thing on our list is operations.
Sorry? Can we distribute the agenda for day 2 for the guys?
Yes,
you did? You have an extra one? Okay. Just mark.
Just tick the first one of the calendars that you guys...
To say you understand it? Yeah. Just tick them as we go along, just to say you understand and you feel comfortable to be able to do that yourself.
وغلبت مع البند مش هعمل عندنا سبراي بس لا
Okay, so the next item on our list is operations. Now, hopefully you won't be spending too much time looking at the operations. Okay, when I say operations again, I should be clear that when we say operations, we mean the phases you talk about, that you guys have. So things like cut, sewing, packing, ironing. That's what we've referred to as operations within Evolve. Okay, so to get to our operation setup, it's in setup, general, operations, and then now we see the full list of operations that we've defined within the system. So I won't go into too much detail about the operations options here because they're quite specific, and if you change those, you could break the system. So try and avoid that as much as possible. Okay, so I'll just give you a brief overview of what it does. So down here we have the list of all the operations that we've defined based on, again, what we know about your business and how we plan on working with the system. And then, so you've got things like material issue. Now this one is just a technicality, as we like to call it. It's just there purely for the purpose of issuing materials. So it's not an actual physical operation. It's just something we need to do in the background. So your real processes start from here, cutting, and then going on, so forth. So you get cutting, sorting, printing, embroidery, and so on. Now, most of them will all be linked, well, all of them should be linked to the SEW section. And then the work content, again, most of these are going to be in pieces, but I imagine the only ones that will be different is embroidery and probably printing and sewing, actually, even. So, yeah. So, embroidery, we've got stitches per minute. That's correct. Yeah. Prints, panels, sewing, and SAM. So this is just what we will be monitoring these operations in the working units. Okay. The other key thing to note on this operation setup is actually the external reference. So this is what we are referring to in all our interface files. So if you ever do come to a situation where you're importing data for the rest of these operations, you'll always need to be using this number here. That's our ID. That's what you need to be having in your interface file. Yeah, and you know the column headers of P, hat, W, and then the number, whatever it was. This is the number you input. Yeah. So in the header files, yeah, this is the number that's referring to.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was 10, 20, something.
Yes. Yeah. This is that. So yeah, you see it's changing as we go on to different operations. Okay. So the key ones are, as you can see, probably you can notice these like swatches next to them. That just denotes our planned operations. These are the things that we are actually planning on the planning boards. The rest of them, where they don't have the swatch, just means it's a secondary operation. It's the dates and the capacity for these would be based off our main planned operations, which is in these cases sewing, printing, and embroidery. So all the rest of these, all we do is monitor the load and actually generate a schedule based on where we plan our main planned operation. Okay. Okay, so next tab along here is descriptors. So for descriptors, what we plan on using the descriptors for is a way to signify which panels are being printed. So it may not be as important for you guys here in Kazari. It's mainly for the Bahir when they're printing to say if they're printing the front panel, back panel, or these sleeves and stuff like that. So you won't need to worry too much about the descriptor. So I'll move on from this bit. And the rest of these options here, again, you guys won't need to worry about these as well. They are system operations and system options, and you shouldn't ever need to go into there. Okay, operations. Again, very high level, and I've kept it high level specifically because, like I said, I don't want too many people playing in that area. I would like to keep away from there, okay? So next thing on our list, transport. Now, currently we don't have any transport time set up in the system, or we're not working towards any transport calendars because we are working towards X Factory. Our delivery date on our orders is X Factory. But in case you do decide at a later date you want to start monitoring the time it takes from the doors to maybe the shipping port or from the warehouse to the customer, you can I'll show you how you can configure that and how you can apply that to the system. So then your orders will take into account also that shipping time as well. So you'll be able to see that representation on the planning board. Okay, so
but you had already that was sufficient time to sending the goods to Bahia to coordinate.
Yes. So for
1 day.
Yes. So
One
for
day sending and
yeah,
one day.
yeah. So for the internal transport between, that we've added that to the operational time. This is specific. The transport time is specifically for time taken to go from your warehouses to the customer or to the port, wherever you take it to. Yeah.
Always
X factory, but this is just in case maybe you decide
sometimes
possibly.
They ask the shipping plans add 32 days for C and G6 in US, New York port. So we make it manual.
Yeah.
If we can make it here, we can add it.
Yeah, then that's what I'll show you. So you can see you can understand how it's done. Okay. So to add transport times, add transports. What we need to do is first go to Setup, General, okay, and then we go to our transport, okay. So first thing we'll do, in this tab it works back to front, or right to left, so in the correct way for you guys, I would imagine. So the first thing you would do in this area is you set up the location. You say, okay, let's say USA. So I enter my location name, I click on Insert. So it's going to be another destination for us. And then I go to the method. So the method is sea, air, or road, whatever it may be. So I'm going to add a new one for C. Again, it's just a case of clicking on the box and typing in the name and click Insert. And then you see it's added to my list. And then we finally go to the first tab. Here, this is where you actually start to build that matrix. So the first one is you're selecting the transport from, so the location, i.e. it's coming from Kazarine, your stores. Then from this list down here, I'm selecting where it's going to. So let's say USA. And then I want to say how it's getting there. So on the last one, I'm saying by sea. Okay. And then I can say how many days. So like I said, it was 30 days or 32 days, roughly, for logistic time. So in the box to the right, I just type in 32, and that's the number of days. And then we obviously specify the calendar, because you may have a different shipping calendar. So obviously shipping, it happens 24/7. You can go to the port whenever. You don't want to limitate the transport time. So usually we tend to create a second calendar. Then you see this section here at the bottom. So, for example, say if all your shipping orders, all your orders that need to go to the customer, they need to be in the warehouse. They need to leave the warehouse, let's say, on a Thursday. You only ever ship from your warehouses on a Thursday, for example. You can specify that by this selection here. So therefore, whenever you're planning on the planning board, it will always take into account that you can't ship on any other day of the week. You can only ever ship on Thursday. And then it will add the necessary amount of time to wait until, obviously, the next Thursday for you to ship. But again, we're not at that stage yet, so you may not need that. So do you have like a specific shipping day? No, you just ship whenever it comes.
Sometimes per day, sometimes within the day.
So then you wouldn't need to use this option then.
The option is there as well, because when you ship by sea, usually the shipping companies, they don't go every day. They go once a week or twice a week. So over there you can select which day the shipping companies come. You can send your container to the port for being shipped. You can select the day over there, and then we calculate which day of the week you can send your cargo into the port.
It's most appropriate here. We face the situation during the revolution that it's unsafe to ship during night.
Okay.
So we took a decision to ship the maximum shipment will leave the factory maximum by 4. That was during the revolution. This is a constraints we put before.
But now
on
you
the
just
shipping.
now you just do
Yes.
So now you're free. So
That when you deliver a cargo into the port, usually you have a day of the week. For example, you have to ship to Europe. Okay, you have to be in the port on Monday morning or Monday at 3 o'clock. So you know that you have that span of time to deliver your cargo into the port. Usually you have very strict schedules like us when we travel by plane. You have to be in the airport at 2 o'clock because you're going to take a flight at 3. So it's the same thing with shipping cargo. That's why the system in here is set up like that for you to select the date. It's not going to give you the exact time or what time you have to be in the port, but at least it's going to give you the date. If you are late, if you're not shipping that day, the system will know, and then you will have to ship till next Monday. So it will take a delivery time as a delay or something. It will give you a warning. So that's why the system is set up the way it is.
It was before the ship by 3 days must be extracted. The cut-off of the shipment before 3 days.
3 days after
one day for transportation inside, so 1 day to in the port to clear the paper, and 1 day to loading the container to the port.
Not necessarily
3
they
days
go
almost.
on the day.
Sometimes our logistics guys, Asa, if you need it, make it 1 day. When we are delaying on the shipment here, 1 day only.
That's risky.
Call the captain of the boat. wait. I'm coming the way.
It's a lot of custom work that the country also have. That you need to do a lot of paperwork. You need to check your cargo and everything before loading into the container. Before loading the container into the boat. It takes at least 2 days process to do that. It's not as simple.
Yes. Last year, our government, Egyptian government, made all the cargo don't work on the day. Only the night from 12
Specific time
to
for
6
for the traffic.
6 hours only in the night.
Wow.
So
Because you're doing a lot of traffic during the day.
Yes, it's
So, and they define the specific routes for them
Yes.
to work in. But actually for this, we have a subsystem for shipment tracking subsystem, which is with the routing of this shipment, this specific container goes with this specific orders to this specific port, which is usually takes 8 hours from the MITA or 4 hours from Alex, and with a form, with a container, and we send after the cargo, we send an officer with a gun. With a gun. This is the city patrols. We are part of customer trade partnership against terrorism, and with every station, whenever he stops, he fill a form. So we track his routing till he reaches to the port and deliver the cargo for another person. And for this, we have a severe. And even from the minute the container comes to the port, and a security officer is in charge for checking 7-point check for the container, right, top, bottom, and ender. So the U.S. Customs want to make sure that there is no people inside the container, hidden inside the container, or narcotics, or weapons, or nuclear weapons, or something like that. And we do that even if there is a report in the container, we change it. If bad smell in the container, we reject it. If the container takes at that specific route exceeds the specific time, for example, we ship from here to Alex in 4 hours for the container. If it takes 5 hours, we do an investigation. What the 1 hour spent more for? Did he take a side way and then open the container and put some weapons inside or whatever? This is.
But what is important in here, the system to add this information is because in case you are not working ex-factory, because your contract with the customer is ex-factory, so whatever time it takes the transportation, all the logistics of delivering a cargo, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
because we have an X-factory system in here. But in case the customer decide, no, I want a CIF kind of, or an FOB kind of deal, or kind of contract, then you can change it in here, and you can give the status of the order to your customer, how long it's going to take from one process to another. For example, when they start the production, when finish production, when transportation start, when transportation finish or arrives in your country. So the system gives you the different setups for you to negotiate different contracts with your customers, not just X factor. That's what we are trying to explain.
Okay. Transport. Good? Good. Next on our list. Again, another nice and simple one, are product types. Again, the product types we've already defined. Hopefully they are the ones that you're going to be using most common, but this is just to show you in case you have a new product type that you need to add, or like you see this morning where we were importing the products and you see we've missed some, so you know how to add those as well. Okay. So again, product types, again, it's the same area. We're going to setup, general, and then product types. And then we now get the full list of all the different product types that we've discussed. Can you see anything that's missing? Just a quick look at that. No? It all looks okay?
DB was
DB?
What's DB? DB.
That's good to answer.
GK.
Jacket.
JK jacket maybe.
LI.
Polo shirt, t-shirt, sweatshirt, and Hanley shirt. This is the most
BN.
common.
No.
Yeah, and this is
Polo
something
is
in our database.
BS, there's polo shirt.
Yeah, polo shirt.
Sweet shirt. T.
They used it sometimes
T or
for
Tudor. TS. So
t-shirt,
you must
tank top,
clear
TT
some.
tank top.
Okay. So it looks good.
It's okay because the system is divided in two parts: product type and products. So you will have a description of your product when you see the product in the order. So don't worry too much about
And maybe
This is already
Yes, the simple, the best. This part, if it's the simple, it can be the best.
yeah. Okay. So on the description, you can obviously type in a description to make it more known, so yes, you know what it is there. And then you can also associate a planning board color to each one of your product types. So when you look at your planning board charts, you can actually see a distinction between or where you've planned all your polo shirts. You can see where you planned all your t-shirts just by quickly looking at what color it is. So it's a nice to have little feature that you can use to make things easier, more visible for you. Okay. So one of the actual other key things that is quite key for you guys is this operations tab. Now, against each product type, we can associate a default SMV or time against each operation. So in the examples I've plugged in a few defaults here against the t-shirt. So I've done 1 minute, one piece for cutting, sorting, and then again ironing, packing, and final order. Because we said in the interfaces you weren't able to send all the SMVs for all the other operations. Mm-hmm. So this is how we're going to get around that, is by when we import a product, it will look at the product type associated that you've sent with that product, and then it will pull this information for the operations. Mm-hmm. Hence why, again, it's it's key that we have that product type in the products file, because this will tell the system which operations it needs to go through, and then which is available to it, and also the quantity that it's going to go.
You mean as a standard?
The default. Yeah, if you've not specified the SMV for that product, it will use this as its default. This is the default syscall against it.
The routing is reflected to this?
So the routing, it's not directly. No, so we've got another area for the routing that you can specifically define that. This is just to say, okay. 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 So yeah, this isn't the specific routing. This is just purely to say
because I see
its operations.
The printing 0 time.
The work time, that's because for those operations, we'll probably get it directly from the product itself. We shouldn't be using defaults for printing and embroidery. We should use the actual time. Okay, yeah. So I probably need to do some more defaults again for these new ones I've added. Yeah, I've got a couple of defaults, but I've missed. There's obviously all these new ones that I've added. Prototypes, again, nice and simple. So next one on our list is user-defined fields. Now, a user-defined field is effectively information that you guys may hold in your ERP or you may want to use for planning that isn't already defined by the system, or we don't have a place to hold it. So you can create a user-defined field, basically like an empty field that you can put whatever data you want into said field. You can create different types of user-defined fields. They can be lookup lists, they can be numbers, or they can just be pure text fields, just to hold that additional information that isn't already supported by the system. So if any of the users ever come to you IT guys and say, in Evolve, we need to see this information, can we put it somewhere? You would create a new user-defined field, and then their users can enter the data they want in there. So again, to find user-defined fields, it's setup, general. You have questions? Sorry? Okay. So yeah, setup, general, user-defined fields. Okay. And then in the screen on the left-hand side, you have the different entities that you can hold the fields against. So if it's an order field, product field, material field, you select which it's going to. Okay. And then you enter what this field is going to be called. So it's called, I can't remember, maybe I might have missed one. Yeah, city. So city is an example of one that should be there. So I'll create it now. City. So I just click insert. And then if I want to create a list of lookup values that they can select from, it's a case of just clicking the list down here, and then list values, and then I can start typing in the locations, i.e. I don't know, London, Cairo, and then again give the full list of values that they're allowed to select from. Click OK, and then whenever they obviously come to use this field in the system. So if I go to now order, on this tab at the end, that field there is now created for them, and they can now select and type in whatever they need to type into that field. So this just gives them extra information that they can hold against the order. Yeah, before it pulls through.
A quick look again to the user-defined field.
Yes, sure, yeah, no problem.
Seems interesting.
No
Definitely.
No phones, no interruptions.
Sorry.
So general user-defined fields. So again, it's just a case you can put against any one of these entities. You can associate an additional field.
like for example in orders.
We've got cities.
You have a
Very cool.
main PO number that
Yeah.
you want to associate to that, so you can add it in there as well.
Yeah.
Because then after you can create a report from that. I want to see all the working orders, all the manufacturing orders for one PO. And then you can create a report of that, but you need to create first that you user-defined field for that.
Yeah. So all these user-defined fields are visible in the reporting tool as well. So you can report on that.
When you interface the orders file from the ERP into Evolve, you need to add that user-defined field for the PO, and you need to send that number, so you can find it here in the system, and then you can report on that, and merchandisers can follow up main POs.
And which interface files?
Orders.
Oh, if it's order, so it depends on where you create the UDF. So if it's an order UDF user-defined field, then you add it to the orders file. If it's a product user-defined field, orders file. So just depends on where you create this new field.
You understand that?
Yep.
I'm thinking of how to utilize it later. Something we want to add to the work order. Maybe it's the work order classification for the work order, whether it's a single work order, the thing we were talking in the morning, or a dying work order.
Client reference.
Huh?
Client reference.
Or a client reference, exactly.
Yes,
Or
that's
the
a
work
nice comment,
order type, whether it's we want to show only the single orders, not the orders that will end up at the die house as a fabric order. So we can add a field with order type, order category, for example, and we can link that order to the interface.
Yeah.
So I recommend after the training that you guys sit down and brainstorm this, and then you can use the system, because you will have access to the system when we are gone, and then you can work in creating new user-defined fields and see how they come up with your.
There's something,
You can change that in the interfaces and send it to the system and see how they look like. So not just creating here, but also interface them and test it.
Something. The more you use the system, the more you obviously understand what is there. Then you'll get a better understanding of what else you need to help you plan and make your life easier. So as you use the system more and more, you'll have more ideas of what you need in this area. Okay. So that's user-defined fields.
Yeah.
Very useful and very simple to create as well. Like, sorry?
Limited number of fields?
Depends. Yes, we've got a limited number, but it's on a license base, which we let's find out. Currently, you've got 50, so you can create 50 independent fields. And if you hit the limit, which I don't know if, hopefully you won't anytime soon, you just speak to Nigel and he will sort out, obviously.
50 per file.
50 in total.
In total.
Yeah.
For orders, customers, materials, and then.
Okay. So if there are 10 divided by 50, so 5 UDFs
Per entity.
Something like that.
Per
An average.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, if you do need more, again, just speak to Nigel. I'm sure he would be happy to increase.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he owes you 1 or 2 favors.
Yeah.
I think he's coming in July to see you.
I think so.
Sure,
Wasn't
we'll
it?
fight in July.
Yeah.
You see him or take his mom?
Oh, no.
Both.
That is user-defined fields, plain and simple. In here it looks simple, but once you interface it through the files, that's where the
Yes.
fun comes.
So speaking of interface files, I'll just show you what you'll need to add. So in that example where I've added the city to the order, what you'll need to do in the interface files in terms of the headers, you'll obviously need to add additional field for the header. So you just basically open up the header file. So the orders header file, notepad, then we just add an extra column at the end, or depending on where you're going to sequence them in the interface or where you add it in the interface, you add the extra column to the comma, then it would be O dot UD, obviously for user defined, and then the name of the user defined field. So in this case, it would be city, so UD city. And then now you can then send in your data files that UDF and it'll import.
So this is the standard format to write the header?
Yes, for orders it's O dot, for products I think it's P dot. So you just need to look at the file and see the way it's coded for the rest of the headers, and then you just say UD and then the name of the field. You can also, in another place, you can actually see this information, which is very useful, is the help file. So if you go to help and then contents, it's already open. In the help file, if you go to reference, then you go to import data. You'll see all the different interface files that you can actually interface with Evolve, and then you can see all the different column headers and their names and what they need to be. So for your reference, just in case you need to add another field to the interface files, you can see the description of the column header and what that information can do for you. So this would be very useful again when you guys are changing interfaces. It would be very useful for your reference. Okay, so user-defined fields. That's sorted, looking good. I think we're on good stead. It was 10 o'clock and 2 hours left. Yeah, okay, we're good progress. So the next one's called planned groups. Now, planned groups, it encompasses quite a number of things. So this is more about the planning capacities and the rows and what we can do within those planned groups. So a planned group for Evolve, FastReact, is usually the factory. So the factory within Kazarine. So the way we've set it up for you guys is each, so Al-Fayoum, I can't remember, Menafia, all these different sites are a different group. They're all different planning groups because they all have different capacities. Okay? Yes, so each one of them is separated and each one of them are called a planned group.
But we will see all the lines, we will see all.
Yes, so for Kazarine you'll see all the lines, but we've separated them because they all have their own capacity. Yes, so to make sure that we're restricting the capacities by each factory, we've created a separate planning group. That's why we refer to them as a planned group. So I'll just show you again the setup area for that. So again, this slightly different area, so setup, planning, and then planned groups. And then you'll see, as I said, you've got one for, e.g. where Al-Fayoum, Kazarine, Menafia, they're planned groups for each one of your factories. So the more important bit for the groups is where we go to the operations. We select our group, so again I'll choose the Kazarine as an example. And this is where we can see we've got the capacity for each one of these operations or phases, and then by group. So for the Kazarine group, we're saying that we've got a total of 25,000 in our cutting department, sorting 56,000. Again, this is all based on the data that you guys have provided us. So this is the minutes per day or pieces per day, depending on the operation type. Do those numbers look right? How do you feel about those numbers? Is it a bit small? Sorry.
Too small.
So yeah, we're saying that for our cutting department, we've got 25,000 pieces per day. Is that right? Okay. In Kazarine? Yeah. So yeah, these are all by per day.
Anyway, you change those capacities, you can manually just go there
Yeah.
and change it
Yeah.
easily.
I just look for the numbers I can't see.
Yeah. So yeah, for each factory we should have we've set them up as well. So by whom they have their own capacity per each phase as well. So yeah, all these capacities and things like that will come. You'll start to once we start to plan and start to use the system, you'll start to see if they're right or wrong and maybe make a few tweaks. But this is where you would come to change the overall capacity by factory. And another quite important thing is the standing time. So the standing time here is what we're saying is between each operation, the amount of time taken to go to the next operation. So we're saying from cutting to sort, there's roughly about a day between it processing before they start in the next phase. So in the total standing time, we're saying that roughly we have about 5 days, excluding the sewing time. There's 5 days where it's sitting between operations to go from each operation. Does it sound about right?
Yeah.
5 days, and then plus maybe 2 or 3 days for sewing. So total a week and a half for your average order. Sounds about right? Yeah. So if you do change, if the time taken changes, for example, say you're cutting to sorting, you no longer takes a day, you do on the same day, you would come into here and just remove that standing time, set it to 0. And then that would mean that the cutting and the sorting both happen on the same day. Okay.
At any time, was there the previous plans?
So it would only go forward.
No, from now?
Yeah, from now on. If it's on the plan now, then yes, go forward. But obviously things in the past, historic stuff, they've already gone, so we're no longer look at that.
It's done already.
Yeah. So from the next level down, so that was the group, so that's the factory level. So the next level down, obviously, for that in terms of planning, is the rows. So what we call row, but what you guys will call sewing lines. So for each sewing line, we call it a row, and I'll show you how to set those up and what we hold against that as well. So again, setup, planning, plan rows. Okay. Now in this list on the left-hand side, you'll have all the planning rows across all the factories and the group. So an easy way to filter that would be in the drop-down at the top, and then you select your group, so your factory. So again, you select Kazarine, and then it shortens down that list to just your teams within the Kazarine group. Okay. So the first one actually is just called Kazarine. That's what we call a holding row. So that's not an actual physical row within your factory. All it is on the planning board to make it easier. So for example, you want to load all your orders on the planning board and then have somewhere to just put them for now, and then you gradually plan them as and when you're ready. It's just a placeholder to make things slightly easier. We also have one of those. But then when you go to each one of your teams, if you select one of your teams, for example, Team 1, we've got the key important thing is your capacity factor, the one here. That is to specify how many members you have within that team. And obviously, because you guys have variable capacity.
Sewing and helpers and sewing and everything.
Yes, so this is just for our sewing lines teams. Yeah, how many people you've got working on it. So I think from what we understood, I think all they have around about 26. All your teams, there's 26 people per team.
Yeah, but
On average, yeah. So again, we'll show you.
without cutting the people and without.
Yeah, without the cutting. Yeah.
Because all of on the sewing that create this equation, we're adding 65% with the worker plus the workers of sewing.
Okay.
This is including cutting, quality, trimming,
Yeah, everything. But for this is purely 26 people for our sewing phase. Okay. And then the available capacity, that will always remain 60 because there's obviously 60 minutes per hour. So we would just always leave that as 60 in this example. And then the capacity factor is a thing that will change depending on if you increase the size of your teams to say 30, you would come in here and update that number to 30. Then that would give you a higher capacity to plan on. Okay? Again, some other fields you do have here is the calendar to use. So again, this refers back to the calendars that we created earlier. We've currently got the CAS here, calendar being used, the one with 7 hours working hours. Yeah. Again, if you would decide to create...
Teams here, lines here. Teams here, line here.
Yes, lines, your lines.
Well, I write down teams, but you can change it. You can change
yes,
it
yeah, to add, you can add. You are limited, obviously, by license, again, by how many you can add. Yes, you've got 15 now, but let me just quickly check how many your license says you can add up to. Where is it? Plan rows. So Nigel's giving you 80, but that's 80 across Bahir and Kazim. So 80, at the moment I think you're only using maybe about 60, 50 maybe? Yeah. So again, if you need to add more than that, you speak to your favourite man, Nigel. So yeah, just go back into there. Yeah. Kazreen. So yeah, so we can obviously specify the calendar. So if you do create a new calendar specifically for a row or team, you can then change the calendar there, and then they'll be working different working hours to everybody else. Okay.
So here's where the system is that actually makes sense. Like for example, you utilize the calendar that you already created, which has the days of the week plus the holidays and the breaks. The system start looking into that data that you already added the setup, and then multiply it by the attended hours that the teams work per day, 60 minutes, and then 60 minutes per hour, and then the capacity, the amount of workers, operators that you have in your lines. You have 26 or 20, 15, how many you set up, you can change it in there. So that will create your capacity for you to plan your orders in the system. Mm-hmm. So here is where things are starting to make more sense.
We're slowly starting to come together to show you what you'll see on the planning board. Okay. Yeah.
The capacity depends on the product.
But the delta tire you can change.
You can change according to the product.
Yeah. So this is just the default.
The default.
As usual, we need to tell the system just something. So the capacity by default for our line is we have 26 people. If we obviously on an order we need more people because it's a complicated style, whatever. For that order, we can up the capacity to say 45, whatever it is.
Where is the minutes of the style? Minutes.
So we've not got to that yet. This is purely the team. Yeah, that's somewhere else. Okay. That's something we'll discuss this afternoon, I think. Yeah. So this is just for our team setup. Yeah. Okay. So where did we have it?
That's tomorrow because it's low level or content and stuff like that.
Is it tomorrow?
Products,
So planning groups is the same as high level board planning roles.
Yes. So that's also so the planning group. is the factories. So where because I know you missed that section.
Yeah,
let me just quickly.
And plan groups there.
So what we've done for your planning groups, that's what we refer to as your factories. So for Menafia, Kazareen, Fayum, Bahir, they've all got their own planning group because they all have their own capacities. So against the group, we specify in the operations tab. So again, Kazareen, we specify the capacity per each phase. Okay, so this is capacity per day. So we're saying 25,000 pieces can be cut in a day, 56 can be sorted, and we're saying for our sew, we're doing about 18,000 minutes per day. Okay, so that's just what our planning groups are. Then the next level down, which is what you saw, would be the planning rows. So then that's when we say the teams belong to this planning group. Okay, that's the relationship between the two. Yeah, so enabled, okay, hopefully you'll never need changes, but this enabled is just where we specify which phases can be done by which group. So hence why you can see printing and embroidery aren't ticked for Kazarine because you guys don't print and embroider. But here you will see that it is been ticked.
Look at the other groups, like for example, EG-ware.
They've all been set up, yeah?
Is everything in that group, EG-ware or EG-ware, is everything, every operation that is enabled is okay in the system, or maybe I missed something in there?
No,
It's correct.
Everything is correct?
There is cutting there is cutting and sorting, and there is sewing, and ironing, packing, no? They will pack here, the final product will be tested here from EG-ware, yeah.
EG, okay. So
No packing and no final audit.
okay,
The
so
audit is here.
we can remove those now.
Anyway, the activity needs to happen, regardless whether it's in that.
Yes, valid point.
So we better leave it.
Yeah.
Wherever they do it, doesn't matter, but they have to monitor it.
Sorry, final audit is there, yes. Final audit is there.
So it could be a good activity for you to review all of the groups that we created and check that every operation is properly enabled, and also check the capacities of every group in case you create a new analysis of your capacities, and then you can go there and update how many pieces each group can process per day. You can update it in the system in here and enable it or not. Like for example in here, we have an average in here, like a standing time of coating is 1 day. Maybe you can change it to 2, or it's up to you. This is what we discussed during the workshop, but it's the default that we have at the moment. If you have a study, an analysis of your stages in the company, and then you decide to add some more time, you can just come here and change it.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever is in
Or if we
charge of-
change the sequence, if we had another small factory for outsourcing where we do only the sewing, you can add it.
Yeah, that would be another group. Yes, correct. Yes, and then you have. So just another thing I always point out about the groups. You may notice that Bahir has been split by embroidery, print, and sew. Now that's purely because for the planned operations, because we're you can see them at high level, and we wanted to split out so you could see embroidery as one group, printing as another group, and sewing as another group, independently of each other. So so they're not all just combined under Bahir.
You can combine them all together.
Yeah, so you can see them separately because they're all different capacities. That's the only difference. So in terms of the other factories, they'll be separate except for Bahir, which has its own 3 groups per one.
Planning knitting and dyeing is a group. Planning knitting is a group. Planning dyeing is a group. Planning sewing and sorting is a group. لكن لما بيطلع بره مثلا ويشغل بالقطعة وعايز تشوف ده جو الفيوم، ممكن الفيوم تبقى planning
You can see there El Fayum 2 or El Fayum?
Fayum.
Fayum only.
Fayum, yeah, that one. You can see that there.
Fayum who belongs Bahir.
Bahir, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Well, Fayum, this is we divide to Fayum 1 and Fayum 3, but
They're combined.
1 and 3, but
We
we
need
prefer
to
to
sorting in here, I think.
leave it Fayum.
Yeah.
Sorting?
And
Ah,
And
sorting.
also capacity to sorting. We don't have this capacity. I think.
We missed
We
one.
must add something in
So that's something that's missing that you can add when you if you know the numbers.
Then you have always to remember to update, otherwise.
Yeah, it won't save. Yeah, that's our save button.
Yeah.
Update button.
We dynamically changed the capacities and the locations. So now Fayoum 2 is no more Fayoum 2. They transfer to another building, another bigger building.
So you're increasing the capacity. That's perfect. So you could do that.
You will see this tab around in many areas of the system, renaming. So when you decide to change a name in anything, operations or groups or anything, or rows, you don't like teams, you want to see lines, and then you usually use this tab, and then you rename things in the system.
Perfect.
Okay, so any questions around the planning group or rows, or you're perfect? Good.
Can we quickly go to locations as well to show them the different locations?
I couldn't see in the list the planning.
They have
rows.
location for materials, for example. There's one in Kazan, Mumbai.
That's what we did with the transport stuff.
Planning.
Did we go to locations?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Pay attention.
That was quick.
There is a planning groups, but no planning rows.
Yeah, so they're just combined under the one in terms of because they're very similar. So as just to explain to Jenny, the locations and the transport matrix, we've kind of we jumped ahead and did those two with the transport, if that makes sense. So that was where we went into setup, general, transport. So that's these three tabs here. So I kind of just rolled up into one and did it as one group. So you can take those two off as well.
I think in here material is, in here locations is important, in the way that you have in here two locations in the system. One is Bahia and one is for Catherine. So when you interface materials, you can select to which locations they're going to go, whether they're going to go to Catherine location or to Bahia location, for then the system after find whether that material is in that location. Not specifically like you have in your ERP that you have the stores by stores. In here will be just one location for Bahia and one for Catherine, and then read from there whether the material is in stock or not, or it's going to be delivered and stuff like that.
And inside the material, we want to differentiate between the different types of material. Since the location is for us, the location is the store. But the physical location, the location in the map now is whether Kazarine or Bahia.
Yes, correct.
Okay, inside Kazarine, we have multiple items in one file. We differentiate them by the store code. Because, for example, all the accessories items in the accessory store location. It's in different specific location here with 05. But the raw material, we have three types of raw material: the yarn, the grade, and finished fabric. They are in different three stores: 01, 02, 03.
Yeah. So for that specific example, what I actually did was create a UDF, user defined field, against the material. So I've added the store as a separate user defined field. So against our materials, material data, you have the store value. So in there you can associate whether it's 01, 02, 03, or whatever that location is for that fabric.
Currently for the interface file. How we differentiate? I've added a store number.
Yes.
For you.
So
fine.
in the interface file, let's just quickly go over that as well. Material stock. So this is the store code.
This is the storage.
So that is being imported against the materials.
Sorry for interruption.
No, it's okay.
We have an emergency, the payroll this Saturday. And we are bringing Ramadan bags for all the employees. No. Trucks are coming in the factory. 10 trucks are coming in the factory. with bags for each employee for Ramadan, for
Wow.
all branches.
Nice.
So 3,500 bags would come now.
But you're in charge of IT, you're in charge of operations, you're in charge of...
I'm in charge of the salad, don't forget. Making the salad at the end of the day.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
ليه يا معلم النهارده كام؟ 6
We always bring this things as the first day of Ramadan. No, second Ramadan.
Oh, they're late.
I don't know. It's finished. We don't need.
Always blaming. Always
We need
blaming.
the Eid bread.
We also give cake at the end of Ramadan. We also distribute cakes for
Better
everyone.
late than never.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good bag, good big bag. Contains rice and sugar and nuts and
Yeah.
That's good.
yeah, a lot of things and tea and
She will be helpful in the next Ramadan.
Okay, so it's final break.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this. I've kind of already covered these bits. I've already done these bits.
Okay.
So I'm just going to, so it's materials.
I'm updating my file as well, because this should go here,
Yeah.
and then this here, and then transport matrix no, because this is basically for transport
Yeah, so
and
from there.
location, so
Yeah.
I delete location. So I'm updating my file as well.
Okay.
But yeah. Okay. So here we can have a quick also.
Yeah. So we take a 10-minute break
Yeah.
just to clear people's minds. Okay. Yeah.
So, planning group, the group itself depends on the operations or the factory itself.
So yeah, the each operation, it belongs to the group. So there's a different instance of the operation per group. Does that make sense?
For example, if we have IT,
Yeah.
it will be like anything outside.
Yeah.
And then this product will come here for buying.
Okay.
Then the group will be nothing outside, right? Like it will be one group.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of. Yeah, because we're not doing it in that, it's kind of confusing. But yes, it would be a separate group. You would have. Well, actually, no. Even if it's coming from outside, we wouldn't even do a separate group. We would just have it as raw material that we are purchasing externally and bringing in. So that material would be as part of our MRP calculation rather than a group, because we don't have. So in that example, do you control the capacity of the external person that's knitting?
For example, if the knitting outside,
Yeah.
and say the hanger,
Yeah.
do knitting in there,
Mm-hmm.
and do the dye here.
Yeah.
So, and I know the capacity there.
So yeah, if you know the capacity of the external dye knitters, then yes, we would create a group. But if you're just purchasing the knitted fabric, then there's no need to group. The groups is purely for the purpose of seeing that capacity and knowing if you're overloading capacity or underload, and how to best utilize this outsider knitters. So in that example where you're saying Bahir is knitting, then yes, we would create a knitting group for them with their own capacity. Yes.
Like it would be like separate group.
Yes. Yeah. We'll break it down into several groups. So I'll quickly show you anyway, just a high level, so you can make a bit more sense. So you see, each one of these is one of our planning groups. It's kind of hard to see, but this is Bahir embroidery, Bahir print, Bahir sew, and then you've got your EG with Ayum, Elf Ayum going down. So for each one of those planning groups that we've created, it's generated a new row at the high level where we can monitor the capacity or the load that we're placing on that factory. So yeah, the knitting, outside knitting would be one, and then so on and so forth.
All the groups that we just already set up in the setup
So
menu.
the breaking here is like one group.
Yes, each one of those is a group.
printing later.
Print, yeah.
You have seen, so it's
Yes.
two different.
But you have printing, sewing, and embroidery.
Why you like you did it as like multiple? Why?
Because they're all different capacities.
Yes, different capacities.
So you would want to be able to monitor how much you're doing in print versus how much you're doing in embroidery. It's two different.
I think eight printing machines and 10 embroidery machines and 10 groups or 10 lines or teams working as a variable capacity as well, same as Cassery, with a certain amount of workers. So they are planned and set up differently. So that's why we have to put it in different groups. And then according to the orders coming into those stages, let's say embroidery or printing or sewing, so then the planner will come and put the orders in the correct bucket.
So the group could be the operation itself. Right?
Only if it's
Group of operations.
yes, it could be. In some examples, it could be
Like
possible.
renting.
Yes, because printing and embroidery have completely different capacities. Like here, we're monitoring stitches per minute, whereas printing, you're monitoring panels per hour or whatever it is. You can't really combine the two capacities because the numbers wouldn't make any sense. So where it is like, if it was all in pieces, then yeah, you could combine them into one massive group called back here. But because we monitor them differently, it would make no sense to combine the three.
Yeah.
In, for example, Bahia here, for example. This is the group Bahia print, right? This is the group Bahia print that we create manually. So we add the calendar, we add the material location in here, and then we update and save it. And then we add the go to operations. We select that group we just create. We create Bahia print. And then you will see all the operations that we already insert in the system. And then you will enable only the ones that are going to go through Bahia printing. Yeah, and then add the capacities of the amount of machines that you have. In printing, you have panels per hour. So, okay, they can do 1,800 panels per hour. So you add that information, and then you save it, and then you will be able to see that setup that you did here in the setup menu. You will be able to see it here in the high-level plan. So this bucket represents that information that you added already in the setup.
And you assign the group to the work order.
So yes, so well, the opposite way around. So when you get a work order, you place it in a group.
Yeah. We're going to go through all of this menu and how everything is going to start making sense this afternoon.
Yeah, so for us, we have like technical documentation for us. So we can have this.
Documentation.
Because as a reference.
Yeah.
Because we are the technical people. So
Yeah.
we need something as a reference for us. So not if we like, for example, if we add something and we think that it's good for them. So we need as a reference for us like technical documentation.
Yeah, so we do have the help file, which gives you a description of each one of the areas and what they.
As a technical team.
Yes. Yeah.
So we need that as reference for us.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
case
We have.
we need
Yeah, we've got files that we can
like on the
share.
setting.
Yeah, we've got files that we can share with you.
We'll see you that later.
Okay.
It's like a guide how to go through every area.
Because there is a guide for the user and guide for the
Yes, yes.
So we need both of
Also, remember we have that tab over there, help, content, which is like a Bible. It's a whole Bible, have everything in it that you want to learn how to use. You will see it in here, this tab. Help. I think you already have it open, no?
Yes, they're at the bottom. Yeah.
And then content, and then it will bring you here. You will have getting started with the system, and well, I can't see here, but you can see more down there. And then you have how the main menu, products, orders, customers, update, reports, materials, everything. Even setups and tools that we're discussing this morning.
functionalities, I think in reference. And reference, you can find how to import data and which files we utilize in the system. So
It's quite useful, this guide.
Yeah.
Everything you need to know about the system, you just go there, and then you even have the ability to search. So anything about, for example, here, I don't know anything about materials, just go there and you see that the manuals are already added into the help file. I have other documents that are like more bespoke for you, for your system specifically, that I can send that to you that later, or more easy to find.
Okay, we're all ready to go again? So. Okay, so we started to kind of touch on this just briefly before we broke up, because our next section now is going to be the materials. So I'm just going to try and give you an understanding of what we store against the materials, the data against the yarns, and how we sort of do some of our calculations in terms of requirements. Okay. So materials, nice simple. If we go to our material tab and then click on material data, I'll select just the material at random. As you can see, is that correct? Would you know? Is that, should I store value 3? Yeah. So yeah, but then so that import has worked then, as it should be. Good. Okay. So the details that we hold against our material record, nice and simple. We have the material name, obviously, which is, I believe, going to be your bill of material item code, if I remember correctly. No?
Bill of material item code is a different.
Okay, so this is just your material reference then?
Yeah, this is the material.
Okay, material reference. And then the description, our store location, so whether it's stored in warehouse 3, 1, 2, I think up to 6, was it? Or 3, 5. This next bit here, you can ignore this material consumed in section because it will always be sewing for you guys. And then the consume at operation should always be set to material KB. So that's our material, as I said earlier, the technicality, as we like to call it. That's just the default location that it needs to be set to. So all material should be consumed in this location. This operation, sorry. Okay, and then against our materials, we can hold things like our lead times. So when we are doing our MRP calculations, it will take into account the amount of time defined against the fabric to say, okay, yes, we may start production today, but our lead time of fabric is a week or 2. So therefore, we need to, 2 weeks before we start production, we need to have our fabrics in. So we'll just take into account that number and then apply that to our material calculation in the MRPs window. We also have material groups, which we haven't set up, but we could use for yourselves if you would like to. So things like where you're specifying whether it's a fabric, accessory, trims, and stuff like that, we can sort of associate that to our material records. Do you feel like that's something you could use or would be useful for you?
You will add accessory?
That's what I'm saying. We could add that for you as well, yeah. It's just whether or not you can obviously send that in the interface files.
How will you feel the orders feel the availability of fabric and accessory in the stores?
So yeah, we also have that in there. So this is just purely the material record. The next window I'll show you how we can fill these stocks as well and show the stocks. But yeah, this is just for the basic information that we hold against that fabric record.
But the fabric in the stores must be allocated to each order. This is very difficult. It will be done from the output of the fabric, from the dye. But the available in stores now, you must
Now they
You must reallocate everything.
accessories
It's
is
very
the most
important.
important. Accessories. No, not only the fabric.
Mm.
The fabric
Accessories.
and the accessories. The
Fabric
threads.
is easy.
Yeah,
You
fabric.
can make it in 1 day, 2 days. Accessory,
Threads.
I think the suit makes this accessory.
Tough job, but we will do it.
Possible.
Yeah, possible, yeah.
Okay.
With the big number of items, this is good. With the big number of items, yeah, 3,000.
About 10,000. Sometimes 10,000 people open people.
Wow. It's a big number. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
very small POs.
Okay.
There are 34,000 pieces of outer stock with 145 people. So 34,000 pieces.
Wow.
This is good. The one PO is 25, 20,000 pieces.
Pieces, yeah.
Okay.
Big quantities, yeah. Yeah. Everywhere else is small.
The
small.
price is very many orders. PO is 24 pieces, 36 pieces. This go to Iceland.
Okay, by
This is,
location. Okay, yeah. So many small orders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The orders one couple.
Some
Yeah, yes, but the accessories would be very difficult, especially for Levi's, because it contains many different systems.
Okay. Yeah, so our next window against our materials, we've got our stock window. So this is where we'll actually be able to see how many pieces or meterage or yard or kgs, whatever the unit may be, of how of each fabric or accessories, so on. So let's just pick one here. Okay, so what we can see is if you select the material reference at the top, get a description of what it is, and then the current stock that we've been obviously interfaced through the ERP. So of this fabric, we've got, is this in yardage, maybe? Not yardage, kgs, maybe 1 ton of this fabric. And then we should also have actually the location. So this is where the location comes quite in handy, because we need to know which one of them can use the fabric, either whether it's Bahir or Kazarine. Because obviously if Kazarine need it, but the fabric is in Bahir, then it's not much use to you guys. You can only use what's in your stores, correct? Yeah, so against each one of our stock imports, we should always have the location of where it's going, or who has control over this material. Which I believe we do have in most of them, but let's have a quick look. Yeah. Yeah, so we do have that.
Inside. It's one store for the here. There's an outside. There's 2 stores. Outside.
The here and the outer.
The here and others.
Yeah, this is a bit store.
Separate store. Even the warehouse production, when they record it, they select whether it's Kazarine production, Bahia production, or outside production.
Okay.
شريف صح لا بس دي ناخد افكار عشان لو عايزين نفكر في حاجه تخطيط للمسطره والمسيره مع محمد فوزي نعمل نفس الكونسيبت ده بس بدل الحكايات المسطره والمسيره على تخطيط عموما على البرنامج كله عموما والله تحت زي صار كده والله مش برودكشن فور
مش فور هو خارج ماشين يعني انا اعتبره زي
مصدر نوع بنحط افكار من دي للنيتنج والدول.
مش
هم دول يشتغلوا بعض.
بس هو جاي مش عارف.
واحنا خلصنا
مش
مش هو خلصنا لوكيشنز، خلصنا ترانسفير.
بنتكلم في الماتيريال. What's the transportation matrix? You jump with this one.
So that one we included in the transport.
Yeah.
So that was where I was showing you how you could do the warehouse to customer. That was the transport matrix, yeah. Okay.
Continue.
Good. Okay, so also within this material stock window, now most of your stock would obviously come from interfaces, but in case you had a manual correction or you created a material manually, you could also specify your stock quantities in here as well. So your opening stock numbers. You can you can adjust your stock quantity, or you can completely enter in a total, yardage or kgs. So this is just purely where we're maintaining our stock numbers. And we also have the transfer stock tab. Yeah, so if you were transferring from Bahir to Kasserine or vice versa, you could specify quantity from here. Okay, currently it's in Kasserine. Okay, Kasserine, we don't have any actually, but we could then specify a new location and say Bahir, and then say how many kgs we were transferring to the new location. Is that something you guys do? Do you ever transfer your fabrics between locations or your material? To say Kasserine Bahir has not enough, so you share some of your stock with them? No?
No, always we give him the fabric, and sometimes we bring the fabric from them, watch we make it, or they import outside to cut and sew it.
So you always do for your demand, yeah.
Yeah, too much.
Okay, so you'd rarely ever have to transfer stock then, hopefully. Okay. Okay, so next tab is what we call our deliveries expected. So this is effectively your POs. So your material PO. So where either you're purchasing externally fabric or you're knitting in-house, this is where we would specify how many quantity we're going to produce or we're receiving in, and the date we're going to receive it in on. So say again, I was going to take another material, and say if we had a shipment coming in next week, or even if it wasn't a shipment, if it was something that we were knitting in-house, we would still say it was a material delivery, because again, it's been delivered to the sewing production floor. So you'd select the material that was coming in, you'd specify the date it was coming in on, whether it was being produced in-house or not, and then you could specify the quantity of how many kg has been brought in. All of this obviously is mostly going to be done through interface files, but this is just obviously so you know how to do it manually in case the issue arises. Also, and missed one step, is you should also specify the location. So specify which factory it's coming to, either here or Kasserine. PR reference is a system field, so PR reference, if you do know, if it is coming externally and you do want to note down the PO number it's coming in against, then you can tell the system that so you have a record of PR reference. But it's not a mandatory field. The only mandatory fields that we require is the location it's coming into, the date, and the quantity that is coming in.
Are we add this together probably when we add the PO in the ERP from the beginning?
It's a
to
procurement.
avoid to make it one BO, one by one BO.
The fabric doesn't depend on the PO.
You can add this when we receive the BO. I can give them the it's not receiving.
You can get them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will ask him it's after 35 days, 40 days.
Mhm.
You can add when we start to putting the PO on the ARP.
Yeah.
So
This is it.
we can avoid this screen to make every BO we must insert a date. That's right. This BO, this chart.
So this
We
PO,
must add.
this is the material PO.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
The delivery date.
hmm
We must add this. We record these dates
That you expect a delivery. Yeah.
with each BO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked him in the jacket to add from the beginning when you're receiving the new orders.
To add the PO reference in there.
Yeah.
Well, we can take
We
it.
will receive, for example, one PO.
Mhm.
We will insert in the ERP system. We will add this one to read.
So you can have it into both systems if you need it. Yeah.
For which item? The,
The delivery date, for example.
for the material, for the accessories.
Same time.
Same time?
Yes, because when I start make, so when I make a start time action plan for BO, we ship after 90 days. I have no fabric and accessory in store. There is still something. We'll buy the fabric and accessory, we'll get after 45 days.
This is expected, or we have a purchase?
Yes, everything expect.
Expected, yes.
Yes.
Or you have a purchase order
Yes,
with a specific
Yes.
date
Yes.
and expected a lead time
yes,
after 14
45
days.
days, yes. Fabric and
A real,
accessory.
a real purchase order you have, or
Yeah.
an expectation?
Everything expected. Even you make a purchase order, will be expected.
Yeah, but the difference here, did you already make the purchase order?
Yeah, we will receive. Yes.
Or just an
Sometimes
expectation and
the
then you will do
accessory-
the purchase order
The
before,
accessory,
after?
the accessories you make already purchase order. The material is the after receiving the BO. The fabric you already have even in store or import or you already booked before.
Alright.
So give 45 days to collect the fabric and the accessory.
And this
So
is standard
insert
PO?
in the system.
Standard PO or different?
No, for BO.
45 days is the standard?
No, listen. This is something. Sometimes we don't have materials, so we book it from the beginning. And sometimes we have fabric in store now. So if we have the fabric in store, we will record is available. The fabric is available in the stores. When we receive the official BO. And we will give a date for accessory because always the accessory is not available in the stores. We give him 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month according to the type of the accessory. We have a
I think
sister company
I think that
making
issue can be
accessory.
handled through the critical path. Now we can have like an activity and the critical path with a certain lead time. How long in advance you need to order your accessories before receiving your PO.
Accessory always we must make it ask when we receive the official BO.
But when you receive the official PO, how long time then you start?
Maximum 30 days.
30 days.
Maximum 30 days. For the imported one.
Could be.
And sometimes take 45 days for special customers, not all. But it's normally 30 days.
Could be either a critical path activity, or we can add like show you in there the material lead time in the first step.
Yeah. So against the material record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those 45 days that accessory need to arrive into the or
Not standard, maybe different.
yeah,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
add it per material.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here
per
you
material.
don't need to add it per
You
PO.
can,
You need to add it per material.
Yes.
per bill of material.
Yes.
So when you create an order in the system, it will read all the materials in your bill of materials, and it will read as well the lead time against that material, and it will show you, like Jake showed you this when we were back in the UK and the system walked through. The system will show you the worst case scenario. It will show you whether the material is available, whether the material is in stock or is going to be delivered, is expected to be. It's going to show you all that information if you add a lead time against the material and the system. Yeah. That depends on the data that we receive from your ERP into the interfaces files that come into the system. If we get that lead time days from the materials from your ERP, then it can be shown in here for him to plan that.
You can do
The lead time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Where is lead time in the interface files?
Material stock file. I think you're already sending lead time, are you not?
No.
No?
It's
Okay.
an MPP.
Okay. So yeah. Then you can add that as well. Yeah. Okay, so that was just our material deliveries and expected. Now, the next screen, I'm going to leave for the moment, material query, because it won't make much sense now until we head into the plan and we start planning orders. But the query window is basically where we run our MRP calculations and see our deficits, okay? Okay. So our next sort of like big section is our planning overview, which is slightly earlier than I expected. Oh yeah, I was going to do high level. That's what I mean. When I said, that's what I said. It's we're a bit early.
But the last one, time tables.
We don't want to do that with merch though. No one from here is merch.
Just for them to have an idea what it is, how our timetable framework works. That's it. It's not really to go in detail.
Yeah, I suppose we could. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll finish this session then with our timetables. Time and action plans. So this is more around the configuration, so more for you guys, IT guys, rather than the actual users themselves. So for our time and actions, again, we go to our setup, event planning, and what we call framework. Now, here we have our time and action is split up by development and production. So development is all our events that we need to do against style itself. So we do it on a brand new style that you've developed. You may have different samples and approvals that need to happen before it can go into production. And then you have your events that are linked to an order for our production events. So any approvals that you need to generate or